Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. And for all you Audie fans, he is napping. He woke me up at 3 in the morning because I wasn't cuddling him. I was sleeping. A lot of nerve I have. So I would roll over and he would climb over me to get back in my face again and say, cuddle me, cuddle me. Eventually, of course, I got out of bed. So did he. So now he needs to go back and nap to make up for the sleep he lost last night. Some people have a really nice life. However, we do have baby bunnies. Say hi. Now, I don't think we've seen much of this one. Oh, yeah, this is my little squirmy worm. It's hard to tell because they all look alike. But this one has only the tiniest little spot of white on his/her forehead. And by the way, I don't know what the sexes are, but this is my squirmy little baby. This is the one that wants to run and jump and play and hop, which is a good thing. I mean, I'm delighted that the bunnies are lively, but it does make it a little hard to show them off. So I'm going to put this little one back in his/her cage before we end up hopping away. Yes, I know, you are so cute, but you're very, very active. Yes, you are. Like I say, this is a good thing. I'm glad that the babies are very, very active. I worry when they are sort of, sitting around lethargic, although this is not the time of day for them to be particularly active. I would say in 3 or 4 hours as we start to approach dusk, yes. But right now, this little one should be sleeping. All right, we're going to take a quick look at the intro, and we'll be right back. So yesterday, I was talking about throwing color into our wardrobes with scarves, because scarves are, well, I'm not going to say all scarves are cheap, because I know better than that. But I have scarves in my scarf collection that have cost me as little as a quarter. Things I've picked up at yard sales, flea markets, thrift stores. So, yeah, you get a lot of bang for your buck, especially if you can find cute items in charity shops, thrift stores. A lot of these are hand-me-downs. Now, in my collection, some of my absolute favorites were either thrift store finds or they were gifts. So they either cost me very, very little or nothing at all. And those are, oh gosh, those are the ones I adore. But when we started talking about that, we opened up a whole little Pandora's box here about accenting outfits, pulling in additional colors, and I thought we would follow up on that. One of the reasons I tend not to get too deeply into color theory is because color theory is no simple topic. Color theory, and I have actually studied it. I took an interest in this when I was in college, and consequently I took courses related to color theory, and they were not out of the art department. They were out of biology and chemistry and basically courses in the hard sciences, because you're talking about optics and ocular perception. You're talking about chemistry when you talk about the reproduction of colors. So yeah, this is one of the reasons that I am so dismissive of the whole, let's do our colors. Like, yeah, pony up your chemistry degree and I'll listen to you. But until you're ready to do that, all you're talking about is your personal perception of what colors go best with what other colors. That's all. And if we're going to deal with personal perceptions, we might as well just stick with the colors we like. After all, why is some color analyst without a chemistry degree? Keep that in mind. Oh, also, I will take a degree in ophthalmology. I'm not going to just stick with chemistry. But yeah, I want a degree in the hard sciences. Why should we take that person's opinion instead of your opinion? Your opinion is just as valid as theirs, especially if all it boils down to is what you like. Well, actually, if it boils down to what you like, your opinion is superior to theirs. So I did want to follow up on something that was brought up in the comments. And Karen Blaylock in the comments had said she doesn't like orange. And that really resonated with me because I went for a long period in my young adulthood not having a taste for orange at all. But I've shared this with you so you all know, having come from that period in the late 60s and early 70s, and that's when I was in high school, and orange was everybody's go-to color. Yeah, I think that affected me because later in life, I realized that even though if you had asked me 30 years ago, what is your least favorite color, I surely would have said orange, and I would have done so without hesitation. Meanwhile, if you asked me what my favorite flower was, again, without hesitation, common daylily, ditch lilies, that's what we call them around here. They grow wild by the side of the highways. Beautiful orange daylilies, and my yard is full of orange daylilies because my mother, who knew my fondness for this, actually went out and dug up some daylilies for me by the side of the highway. And mind you, this was a woman who, if she found a dime in a payphone, she would just put it in a charity basket because she had such an aversion to theft. And that would have constituted theft to her. Yet she went out and stole daylilies off the side of the highway for me. And I still, to this day, have descendants of those plants. The daylilies in my yard are the direct descendants of those plants my mother stole for me. So how can I say, on one hand, my favorite flower is an orange daylily, and nothing will bring a smile to my face faster than a nice stand of blooming ditch lilies, and meanwhile I say orange is my least favorite color? And I had to reconcile the cognitive dissonance that came from that. And I realized I do like orange, obviously, because I love daylilies. But I had this aversion to it. There was no orange in my wardrobe. I never actually put it together for myself. But what I did work out eventually was that my prejudice against orange was something I had to work to deal with. So I have an orange shirt today. Now, I've only got one, and that's the only orange thing in my wardrobe. But still, I feel it's a step in the right direction. And remember, on this channel, our motto is everything in baby steps. So, Karen, I wanted to share that with you. Consider the things out in the world that you do like that are orange, even if it's nothing more than a McDonald's milkshake in an orange cup. Because my aversion was completely irrational. It goes back to the Bozo the Clown colors of the late 60s and early 70s, and I blamed orange for that. So, while we are looking at color associations, and this, I had not planned this, by the way, but it is a perfect tie-in because I do want to talk about adding contrasting colors to your wardrobe and how we can do this effectively and why some colors work for us and others don't. So, and yes, I have in fact made a study of this. It's nothing I can throw into a 30-minute video, but still, we're going to pull out little bits and pieces of this. Let's go back to another of our viewers, Laura Wade, who is now my favorite fashion guru because she is the one who shared with us the idea that we should not be looking at our colors from the color analysis. We should be looking at our preferred aesthetic and choose our colors from there. So if your preferred aesthetic is cottagecore, your colors might be pinks and greens and woodland colors. If your preferred aesthetic is, in Laura's case, Nautical and Napoleonic, we know what her colors of choice are going to be. They're going to be red, white, and blue. Why? Because those are the common themes in both Nautical and Napoleonic. And I wanted to start there because we strongly associate reds and blues. They are, let's face it, they are jarring colors. They are contrasting. This shirt is navy blue, and this scarf is mostly navy with some green in it with a strong red border. Contrasting colors. And why is it that it's okay for us to see red combined with blue? Because these are both primary colors. Remember, a third primary is yellow. So red, blue, yellow. We're good with red and blue. Why? Because we've seen it. Because it's the colors of the American flag, the British flag, Australia and New Zealand's flag, the French flag. Let's go back to Nautical. Because we have associated the colors of those naval uniforms with the concept of nautical style, a nautical aesthetic. If you want to decorate your beach house in a nautical theme, you're going to go with red, white, and blue. And the reason for this is, frankly, we inherited from those military uniforms, the naval uniforms in particular. So, by the way, I'm going to start showing you pictures as I talk, because the British naval uniforms, which go back, frankly, to the Revolutionary War, although, of course, we're American, so we don't copy British military uniforms from 1776. That would be unpatriotic. Let's just take a quick look at a British naval uniform from the Napoleonic Wars, because, yeah, we weren't involved in that. And in the Napoleonic War, you see a blue and white uniform, well, sort of uniform, a proto-uniform with a red bandana. And that became associated with the Navy, not just the British Navy, but the US Navy, blue and white with a red accent. And by the way, we still see that today in naval uniforms, and we see this also today in the French naval uniform, blue and white and that little red accent. It's something we are used to seeing. So the contrast, and well, you can see for yourself, the contrast between the red and the navy blue, and by the way, navy blue didn't just draw the name out of thin air. This is the color of blue favored by the US Navy. The contrast is very, very strong, but it's not jarring to us. So we are going to take a little bit of a diversion here because I want to look at the Napoleonic aesthetic. Remember, that was Laura's other aesthetic. And that too is red, white, and blue. And we get that mostly from Napoleon himself, who was invariably painted in red, white, and blue. His wife Josephine, however, was not. This is a bit of a digression, but I do want to throw this in here. Josephine was most frequently painted in a white dress, often with a red accent. However, historically, we remember her as being painted in red, white, and blue. So when we look at this painting, which is Josephine done in her lifetime, we see the reality. Josephine in white, with red accents. When we look at these images, which are Josephine, recreated in the 20th century, the one on the left is the early 20th century, in case you haven't figured that out, from the 1920s makeup job, and then the very later end of the 20th century with this little statue. You can easily see that we have retroactively imposed red, white, and blue on her. Was that the reality? It was not, but that's how we remember her. So we have this notion that red, white, and blue go together. These are colors that complement each other. And by the way, I'm not using complementary in the sense of the color wheel, because the color wheel defines complementary colors as the opposite colors on the wheel. So would we have red, white, and blue? No. The complementary color to red is green. The complementary color to blue is orange. So no, that's not what we would have. When I use complementary, I am referring to colors that complement each other in the sense of flattery. So let's just very quickly pull out of this and take a look at some other colors, because remember, the three primary colors, we see red and blue as doing well together. This is not jarring to us, even though this is a very stark contrast. So why is it that we don't see red and yellow as going well together? When we think of red and yellow together in an outfit, we think of this as clownish. This is not something that is very appealing or very fashionable. Now, you can obviously find red and yellow outfits. I found some on the internet, but is this something that we're accustomed to seeing as we walk down the street? Well, I don't know. I guess that depends on where your streets are. But I would have to say no. This is not something that we look at as a desirable color combination. It's a little too stark, a little too bold, again, a little too clownish. And that is an unfortunate association, because red and yellow can work well together. But because the contrast is so strong, we're not used to it. Blue and yellow, on the other hand, and remember, three colors, we're still just dealing with the same three colors. Blue and yellow is a color combination that we find appealing. Now, this goes back to the 1970s. John T. Malloy, and I have to throw that T in there because apparently there is a ton of John Malloys out there, and I don't want to confuse anyone. John T. Malloy is the man who wrote Dress for Success. And he did research. He called himself a wardrobe engineer. And he researched people's reactions to color. So it was social science research, basically. He would interview people, expose them to certain color combinations, certain types of styles of dress, get their reaction, and that's where his information came from. And by the way, it's very good information. If you didn't have the opportunity to read his books back in the day when they first came out, I'm sure you could get a copy from thrift books or Amazon. I like thrift books a lot, by the way, just saying. Again, not sponsored, just happens to be one of my go-tos for books. John Malloy tested blue and yellow and found that color combination resonated with people as being likable, amiable, open, friendly. So this is a color combination that does work very well. It's one we like. And by the way, I had no lack of images of blue and yellow, even strongly contrasting blue and yellow, available to me. And they, well, as you can see from the images yourself, these are appealing photos. There is nothing clownish about any of these outfits. So yeah, red and blue go together, and we associate that in our heads. Meanwhile, blue and yellow, oh, we like that one a lot too. But red and yellow, not so much. And this is because of what we are conditioned to see. So when you add, by the way, this is where this is all going. When you add contrasting colors to your wardrobe to break up a monotone outfit, to get yourself a spark of color, it's wise to consider what we are accustomed to and what is out there. If you have a monotone yellow outfit, throwing in a pop of red might look like a good idea on the surface, but it may not pan out so well in terms of how that outfit is received by others. Just saying. Now keep in mind, I think everybody should be dressing for their own pleasure alone. But yeah, I'm not the ruler of the known universe. Oh, that's Audie. But even if I were, what can I say? I don't make these rules. The fact is that most of us have to consider how we are presenting ourselves to others. And I think in large part, this is why we get dressed in certain ways, because we want other people to get a certain impression of us. We dress to make a good impression. We dress for the people around us. So yeah, maybe if you have a yellow outfit, that red handbag is not going to be the best first choice, but a blue one might be. Why? Because yellow and blue is perceived as a friendly combination. Just that simple. And there are a lot of other combinations that are perfectly viable, but we're not used to seeing them. One of my favorites, and I'm going to trot out one of my hobbies, and as some of you do know, I have a vintage Barbie collection. Oh, yeah, I'm thinking, as some of you, it's on my little icon for the channel. So yeah, I guess you all do know that. Barbie had an outfit called Music Center Matinee. And it was a lovely red two-piece dress with a hot pink hat. Now, red and hot pink fall fairly close together on the color wheel. And combining these colors can be tricky. Now, Mattel did it. Barbie's outfit is great, but it's hard to deal with colors that are too close together. Princess Diana wore a red and purple suit. I think it was a purple skirt and a red jacket, or I could have that backwards, when she visited the Taj Mahal. Looked great on her. Meghan Markle, when she was copying her Diana outfits, ended up wearing a purple dress with a red coat, which really did not flatter her. And yeah, I know a lot of that was the baby bump dropping down to her knees, but still. Yet I found a few other images on the internet of women who really looked good in that same color combination with purple. Sometimes they work. It worked for Diana. It worked for that other lovely young woman whose picture I found on the internet. It didn't work for Meghan. No. I don't think a color combination like that would work for me at all. I think the blue undertones would be just devastating with my fair complexion. Regardless, the colors are close together on the color wheel, and combining colors that are too close together can be tricky. I'm not saying it can't be done. Remember, that Barbie outfit was a huge seller. Diana looked fabulous. Some other random woman I found on the internet, she looked great too. So certainly it can be done. But I would say it has to be done carefully. Some other examples. Red and green. opposite colors on the color wheel. The color wheel calls them complementary colors. Wearing red and green can make you look like a Christmas tree. Now, there's a reason I wore what I am wearing now. You notice there is green in this scarf. And yeah, red and green. Now, there's a reason, by the way, that we associate tartans with Christmas. And it's because of the predominance of red and green patterns in tartans. So, yeah, is this a color we should mix willy-nilly? Absolutely not. However, having said that, back in the 1950s, in fact, the year I was born, the hottest color combination for interior design was red and green. Sounds crazy to me now, but that's a fact. In fact, I did a video about this some time ago, what the hot colors were in interior designs in the 1950s. And yes, the year I was born, it was red and green. And then this same general, I have to be careful, general color combination resurfaced back in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And the colors were more saturated then, and the reds tended to be a little more toward the burgundies, and the greens tended to be a little more toward the hunter green or forest green. But yeah, red and green, hot combination for interior design. We didn't see that reflected in fashion at the time because, again, people do not really have a strong association with red and green together in clothing. But again, that's because we're not used to seeing it. Why is the red and blue easy for us to tolerate, but the red and green not so much? What we're used to, what we have come to accept. And this has nothing to do with the science of color. It has to do with the social science of color perceptions and associations, which is yet another different branch of color science. So when we start combining colors in different ways, we have to be mindful of what we are achieving when we throw that pop of contrasting color into the mix. And I guess the bottom line is, if you like it, and all it is a contrasting pop of color, go for it. What does it matter what anyone else thinks? You know, the worst they're going to think is, oh, I guess she brought the wrong handbag today. No one is going to report you to the fashion police. But some colors are easier for us to tolerate together because we're used to seeing them together. Others, not so much. And the reality is that the only way we're ever going to get used to seeing different colors together is with repetition. If everybody puts on a yellow dress and grabs a red handbag, sooner or later, we will become used to this. Things like pink and black, high contrast colors. Elvis Presley, oh my, 1950s, 1980s, yellow and black, high contrast colors. But yeah, those were the go-to colors back in the 80s. Would I wear black and yellow today? Probably not. But would I wear black and pink? Yeah, I probably would. And no, actually, it's not probably. I actually have paired pink and black recently. And the reason for that is Elvis Presley made that color combination acceptable. Even though we're not seeing it the way we used to in the 50s, it's somewhere in the back of our heads as okay. Yellow and black, no, we're probably seeing that car from Transformers. So, yeah, what I think the issue we have to be mindful of is There are so many colors out there. And if we are going to try to grab a contrasting color, we are better off going, instead of the opposite end of the color wheel, because that would be our red and green, or blue and orange, which is another one that is equally jarring. Instead of going there, or instead of going over to the next color over, the reds and pinks, the reds and purples, which they can be effective, but they can be tricky to pull off. We should just swing a third of the way over on the color wheel and start looking at things like the blues and yellows, the blues and reds. And then remember, we're just talking about that 120 degrees, that third of the color wheel. Shift it. Pick your next color combinations accordingly and try them out. Because when we want contrast, we want something that pops. We want something that's eye-catching. But we don't want jarring. So, yeah, 180 degrees is going to be jarring. But 120 is probably simply going to be a nice, happy contrast. So that was what I wanted to talk to you about today. I think it's something we should all look at. And do keep in mind, these things change over time. Colors we see going together today are not necessarily the colors that our grandparents or great-grandparents paired up. 200 years ago, the go-to colors for blondes were pink and gray. It's kind of a bizarre color combination by today's standards, but back in the Regency era, that was all the rage, pink and gray. So things change, things shift. Just because something isn't stylish now doesn't mean you can't wear it. Something that might be an oddball combination on me might look fantastic on you. So I would say the best barometer is get your items, put them on, and stand in front of a full-length mirror and ask yourself, does this look eye-catching or does it look jarring? If you come up with the answer that it looks jarring, then consider changing. And maybe, that orange scarf would do a little better if it were yellow or red, the colors on either end of orange instead. Maybe that would be the best move. You see something doesn't go with blue, maybe green, again, to one side of blue, or purple to the other side of blue. Maybe they might be a better combination. But we do need to bear in mind that people's perceptions are key. And if you are pairing red and yellow, and all people are going to see is a court jester, then rethink it. I'm not saying you can't do it, because there's nothing wrong with the outfits that the folks in these pictures are wearing. It's just that there is a perception. Rethink it. Do it with purpose. Don't do it by mistake. By the same token, if you want to pair green and blue, those are tricky colors too. Again, adjacent on the color wheel. If you want to pair green and blue, you can do it. You will not necessarily look like you fell into a fish tank. But remember, that's the danger point. So I guess the bottom line is there are rules out there. The rules can be broken, but you have to be mindful of what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. Also, be mindful of what the pitfalls are. And other than that, knock yourself out. It's your body, you're dressing it, and if it makes you happy, ultimately, isn't that all that matters? All right. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope to see you all again next time. We're going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.